Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we are embarking on a seriously dramatic, historical journey into deep space. We're going to explore a mystery that has baffled and frankly terrified astronomers for decades. I am absolutely thrilled to guide you through this because we are looking at one of the most extreme environments in our entire solar system and the incredible, almost unbelievable lengths humanity went to just to touch it.
So let's just dive right into this. We hear about Mars constantly, right? Elon Musk wants to build cities there, we've sent rovers, we're planning crewed missions, we even sent probes way out to the moons of Jupiter and Saturn. Yet no space agency on Earth has touched our absolute closest planetary neighbor in 42 years. Why the total abandonment? What exactly do we find there that terrified the global scientific community into literally never going back?
To really get why this is so shocking, you first have to understand the illusion. For a long time, Venus was considered Earth's twin sister. The stats are incredibly similar. Venus is just 27 million kilometers away. Its volume is 95% of Earth's. The mass is nearly identical. When astronomers first looked through early telescopes, they saw a dense, thick atmosphere exactly like ours. On paper, it looked like the absolute perfect place to find life, perhaps even a second home.
But, that wonder quickly turned to dread. In 1960, an American astronomer named Carl Sagan published this groundbreaking research paper. He proposed that the thick, 80-kilometer-high clouds obscuring Venus weren't actually made of water vapor protecting some lush, tropical world. Instead, he theorized they were greenhouse gases. And because Venus is closer to the sun, Sagan argued these gases were trapping solar radiation, creating a runaway greenhouse effect. Basically, if he was right, anything traveling to Venus would be instantly incinerated.
The Soviet Union took Sagan's theory not as a deterrent, but as a challenge. They launched the Venera program. But Venus proved to be an impenetrable fortress. In 1961, Venera 1 sensors were literally cooked by solar heat mid-flight. In 1965, Venera 2 got within 24,000 kilometers before its thermal coating completely failed, melting the internal electronics. Just a few months later, Venera 3 managed to reach the atmosphere, only to instantly burn up. Meanwhile, NASA was over here doing their own research. Their Mariner 2 probe performed a flyby from 35,000 kilometers away, and the data it collected over those 42 minutes was shocking. It proved Sagan right. The probe recorded surface temperatures of at least 237 degrees Celsius. That is more than double the temperature of boiling water. NASA realized immediately that this was a dead world, and they swiftly abandoned Venus to focus all their energy on the Moon and Mars.
Section 1. The crushing depths.
But the Soviets? They absolutely refused to quit. Instead of treating the Venusian atmosphere like sky, they realized they had to start treating it like a deep, hostile, boiling ocean. For Venera 4, they built this 3.5-meter metallic sphere. They pre-cooled the interior to -4 degrees Celsius and reinforced the hull to withstand 25 atmospheres of pressure. And it was descending perfectly until about 26 kilometers above the surface. Suddenly, the temperature outside spiked to 262 degrees Celsius, the pressure completely overwhelmed the structural limits, and the probe was literally crushed to death mid-air. It imploded before it ever even touched the ground. So by combining data from NASA's Mariner 5 and that doomed Venera 4, scientists finally pieced together the horrifying composition of this alien world. The atmosphere wasn't just hot, it was actively trying to dissolve anything that entered it. It is overwhelmingly carbon dioxide, laced with these thick clouds of highly corrosive sulfuric acid, nitrogen, and less than 1% oxygen. It is just overwhelmingly toxic.
Oh, and remember that 237-degree reading from earlier? Yeah, that was a massive underestimation. The real surface temperature was found to be closer to 480 degrees Celsius. To put that into perspective, if you dropped a solid ball of lead onto the surface of Venus, it would instantly melt into a puddle.
And honestly, the pressure is even worse. The atmospheric pressure at the surface is 90 atmospheres. Imagine standing on the surface of our planet but feeling the exact same crushing physical weight as if you were trapped 1 entire kilometer underwater in Earth's darkest oceans. That is the baseline existence on Venus. But the Soviets tried again in 1969 with Venera 5 and 6. They made the parachute smaller this time so the probes would drop faster through the atmosphere, hoping they'd reach the surface before the heat melted their internals. But those 90 atmospheres of pressure were simply too much. Both probes were crushed flat exactly 11 kilometers above the ground. And with NASA successfully putting humans on the moon that exact same year, Soviet space morale was taking a massive hit.
Section 2. Engineering for the underworld.
This whole string of failures birthed a genuinely radical, maybe even slightly comical idea. If the atmosphere of Venus acted like a crushing, boiling ocean, they needed to stop building spacecraft and start building submarines for space. So, for Vena 7, they forged a massive 490-kilogram egg made of solid titanium. It was engineered to withstand an impossible 180 atmospheres of pressure and 540 degrees Celsius of heat. They even packed it with an auto-sensor heat protection system, pre-cooling the entire internals to -8 degrees Celsius right before it hit the Venusian atmosphere. And the landing? Pure chaos. Just 10 kilometers above the surface, the parachute tore apart. Venera 7 plummeted, slamming into the ground at 60 kilometers per hour. It rolled over, lying heavily on its side. But, incredibly, the medium-gain antenna was still pointing slightly upward. Against all odds, this titanium submarine transmitted a weak signal back to Earth for 23 glorious minutes. It became the very first human-made machine to ever touch and transmit from the surface of another planet.
The data it sent back, along with Venera 8, which followed shortly after using advanced lithium nitrate cooling, completely shattered old myths. The transmission essentially translated to solid rock, no water, no soil. They discovered the surface wasn't a swamp or an ocean like some thought, but volcanic basalt rock, kind of similar to Earth's oceanic crust. And crucially, they proved that despite those 80-kilometer thick acid clouds, sunlight actually does reach the surface.
Section 3. Postcards from a Hellscape. Knowing that sunlight actually pierced those clouds was a total game-changer. It meant that if a probe could survive the crushing pressure, the melting heat, and the corrosive acid, it could theoretically do the impossible: take a photograph of the underworld. But to get a camera down there, Venera 9 had to survive falling through 12-millimeter thick layers of pure sulfuric acid. It had to navigate winds whipping at 360 kilometers per hour. For context, Earth's most devastating tornadoes max out around 300 kilometers per hour. Near the surface, the air is so incredibly dense that Venera 9 didn't even need its parachute for the final stretch. It literally just floated down through the thick, soupy gas. Then, on October 22, 1975, the impossible happened. Touching down in a hilly, rocky region, despite a broken shock absorber and a 20-degree tilt, Venera 9's lens cap popped off. For 30 minutes, it captured a 124-degree angle black and white photograph. Just imagine the sheer pride here. A camera sitting on a burning rock 30 million kilometers away, successfully beaming back the very first image of the surface of another world. Just days later, Venera 10 followed right on its heels, surviving for 65 minutes to capture a panoramic shot. Now let's put this tech in perspective for a second. The data transmitted was a mere 64 kilopixels. A standard 48 megapixel smartphone camera today holds about 750 times more data than that image. They basically built an armored titanium space submarine to travel 30 million kilometers just to take a single blurry photo. But capturing even a single pixel in an environment that literally melts lead, that was nothing short of an engineering miracle. The Soviets kept refining their designs, culminating in the ultimate probes in 1981, Venera 13 and 14. Venera 13 was an absolute beast. It deployed air brakes for a gentler landing. It carried a color camera, a mechanical drill to sample the basalt rock, a seismometer, and get this, a microphone. Miraculously, this heavily armored scientific fortress survived in the hellscape for 127 minutes, sending back the first ever color photos of Venus. But for me, perhaps its most haunting achievement was the audio. For the very first time in human history, we heard the sounds of another planet. The microphone captured the terrifying ambiance of Venus, a deafening, roaring alien wind that sounded like everything around the probe was violently breaking apart. It is a chilling reminder of the raw, aggressive power of this hostile world. Now, of course, with such unprecedented imagery, imaginations ran totally wild. Years later, a Soviet scientist named Leonid Kazan-Fomality even claimed to see a scorpion-like creature moving in the Venera 13 photos. But we can quickly put that rumor to rest. Further analysis proved that the so-called alien was actually just the probe's own lens cap. It had popped off upon landing, and the 500-degree heat was actively melting and warping the metal right in front of the camera. So, what does this all mean? The crucial point is this. After pushing engineering to its absolute breaking point, we realized Venus is permanently, irrevocably hostile. There are no resources to mine, no surfaces to colonize, just a toxic pressure cooker that destroys everything we send. And it leaves us with a pretty provocative final thought. Venus is almost identical to Earth in size, mass, and distance. It is our twin, but a runaway greenhouse effect turned it into literal hell. As we look at the changing climate on our own world, we really have to ask ourselves, are we looking at a dead planet or are we looking at a mirror?